Some have already joined the webinars that we offered before, so I hope not all the 200 will show up because there won't be enough space. So we'll feel free to ask questions also. There are 3 parts to this, and we'll do a bit of a back and forth. I'll start, and then Rich will take over, and then I'll do the end. And so maybe in between these 3 parts, after each part, maybe if you have questions, feel free to go to the microphone. You can practice for the rest of the week. Get to the microphone line and ask a question or make a comment. So right, let's get started. This is awkward. Yeah. Let's go down. Okay, well, maybe we should have shown this is the PowerPoint version. Interesting. We got a little sneak preview of the next slide already down here. So this, you don't have to be able to read this. I mean, I understand this is a lot of text on one slide, but you will see this a lot in the working groups also. This is the note well. And it lists a lot of kind of legalese, the intellectual property rights, and make sure that you understand that you make contributions to the IETF, what the rights are for the IETF and for you. It'll also list some privacy considerations. On the next slide, maybe you can do this for me, because otherwise there are also some documents here, some BCP, best current practices documents and RFCs that describe like the code of conduct, the anti-harassment policy, the actual standards process. So all this is part of what the IETF calls the note well. And you might have seen this when you registered. There was also a page on that. And in theory, in front of every working group session or every IETF session, this is shown. So to remind you of that. So that's just to set the scene for all the activities here at the IETF. Now let's dive into the next slide, where there are a lot of activities specifically for newcomers during this week. So it starts with this newcomers tutorial here. There is another tutorial in parallel with this, and there's a 3rd tutorial after this that talks about GitHub tools that might be interesting if you're interested to go to that. It's not particular for newcomers, it's open to anybody. Actually, everything at the IETF pretty much is open for anybody unless it's marked differently. Then at 3 o'clock, there is something we call the IETF Quick Connections, which allows you to quickly get to meet a lot of people that are a bit more familiar with the IETF already. So it's like it's like a big room with lots of tables and numbers, and you have like a few minutes to walk from one table to the other and talk to people, and maybe find those people who are involved in the area that you're also interested in. And so that's usually a good way to get, see the new faces, and then you have people to go to during the rest of the week. Then after that, there's also a meet and greet session specifically for newcomers, where a lot of the working group chairs, BOF chairs, area directors will be there, and they have little areas. You can find the area that you're working with or that you're interested in, or the working group chairs that you would like to meet. So please don't be shy. This is really for you there to meet the people that are chairing the working groups that you're maybe going to later in the week, or the area directors that are responsible for the topics that you're involved with. So please go make yourself known to them. Also, maybe ask them questions if you come here with specific topics. So that's usually a good session to go to. And then after that, there's a regular IETF welcoming reception, but the newcomers, of course, are also welcome. And then I don't know how many of you have registered or have subscribed to the guides or mentoring program. Are there any here who have subscribed to that? No. Oh, 1, 2, 3. Okay, a few hands. So yeah, I believe you can still sign up for that. So there is that's a way to have like a contact throughout the rest for the whole week. Basically, it's like a mentor or a guide that is a bit more familiar with the IETF, ideally in the same field that you're interested in, and then you have one contact person that you can go to during the week if you're kind of feel lost, and that's can happen here because it's quite a big event. So I recommend you to, if you don't have any colleagues or if you're kind of here on your own, maybe sign up to the guides or the mentoring program to have a contact person there. And then there's a more informal thing on Monday evening. It's a newcomers dinner. It's not at all mandatory, or it's just if you feel like, you know, I don't know how they're going to organize it this time if you have 200 newcomers and a few more people to join, how that's going to work, but you're welcome to attend it. But it's like you pay yourself your own dinner, but you at least get to meet all the other newcomers as well. And then I would like to ask you also later in the week on Thursday morning, there's the feedback session. It's also on the agenda, you can see it. And then we would like you to give us feedback about all these programs and all these activities and see what works, what didn't work. You know, later in the week, you already have an idea like how you felt after a few days being here at the IETF. And then we would like to learn from that for next time. Yes, please move on. So yeah, this presentation, as I said, there'll be 3 parts, and we really want to focus on being here at the IETF meeting. So it's really how you survive this week with like hundreds and hundreds of people and about 130 working groups in 7 areas, and there's a lot of information and a lot of meetings. And so we focus on how you make the most out of it this week. There is a lot more to the IETF, the whole history, the overall structure, which we're not going to focus on in this presentation. And there is a lot more information on the website, and we list one link here to YouTube. These slides, by the way, they're also available on the agenda, so you can download them and look at the links. There are some nice short videos about various aspects of the IETF. Yes. Okay. Now, move on to the IETF and how it's structured at least a little bit. I don't want to go into too much detail here, as I said, but yeah, let's just look at the mission. So I'm just going to read this out because this really is quite important. The mission of the IETF is to make the internet work better by producing high-quality, relevant technical documents that influence the way people design, use, and manage the internet. Now, that's pretty generic, but what it boils down to is really that the IETF develops protocols that should be secure, stable, sustainable, and are deployable, easy to deploy, implementable, so as a group together here at the IETF. So that's basically what we do here during the week, and of course also in between the IETF meetings, so the work doesn't stop here on Friday. Let's move on. Yeah, so we put that in here because you might be familiar also with other standards organizations. So the IETF is a standards development organization, an SDO, but it's quite different from others that you might have attended in the past, like the ITU or ETSI, W3C. There are some other standards bodies out there. First of all, the IETF kind of focuses on internet protocols, the internet itself. And there's, of course, sometimes some overlap. And there's a lot of liaison going on also between the different standards development organizations. But the IETF is kind of different as such that it really is a group of individuals. So you participate all here as individuals. I mean, obviously, a lot of us have our employer or university or whoever as backing and maybe paying the bills. But in principle, all the opinions and comments and drafts and everything are contributed as by individuals. So there's no official, role of like governments or organizations that endorse the standards in the end. It really is market driven, and that every standard is a standard once it's used widely in the industry, on the internet. So that's very important. And also what's important is there's no formal voting. So you might have seen in other events, people, raise their hands and say how many of you are for solution A versus solution B. Now here we don't do that. We don't do voting, we do humming. And I'll get to that later. That gets a little getting used to at first. And it's, as I said, it's quite unique. So it's bottom up. It's really people in the working groups do most of the work, and then it kind of trickles up, gets reviewed, and in the end kind of goes through this whole internet, this whole RFC standards process. Yes, so at the moment we have 7 areas. So there are these areas that the working groups are clustered within. This can change over time. Some areas merged over time and some were closed, some new ones were created. So at the moment we have these 7. I'm not going to go through all of them. You will see on the agenda every working group is linked to one of these areas. Right, so let's get back to the humming and the main mantra of the IETF. So the main mantra really is, and that's one of the very early quotes from one of the early IETF participants, says, "We reject kings, presidents, and voting. We believe in rough consensus and running code." So now what does that mean? Like running code, obviously that's like standards need to be implementable, deployable, as I said earlier, secure, stable. But rough consensus, and that's an interesting concept. And there's an interesting document here listed at the back, at the end of the slide, that I would recommend you to read. It also applies to other venues and other groupings, I believe. I've learned a lot from that document and how to build consensus. And rough consensus really means that all the issues and all the differences in opinions have been heard and addressed. It doesn't necessarily mean they're all part of the solution, because not always all the issues can be addressed in one protocol. But at least they've been heard, they've been discussed, and in the end the solution is something we can all live with. And it's the task of the working group chair or the session chair to drive this process and to ensure there is consensus in the end. And it doesn't stop at the working group meetings here, it also often gets carried into the mailing list. A lot of work gets done on the working group mailing list, of course. And that's how it's done with this humming. I wanted to say a few words about the humming because it's kind of special. I don't know if you have already experience with this. So sometimes the working group chair would ask, who believes solution A is the best solution? And then people would go, and then, they'd go like, who thinks solution B is the best solution? And then maybe more people would go, that's right. And that's kind of a bit awkward. You're like, why would we want to do that? Is this really clear? We don't know how many people are humming or not. Actually, you get a pretty good idea of the temperature of the room, of the sense of the room, and who's, which solution might be carrying more weight. And another important aspect of that is that it's anonymous. So you don't raise your hand and I can see, oh, this person is for the other solution, so I'm not going to talk to him later on, or I do want to talk to him. So it's really more anonymous, and it gives a good overview of the actual working group as a whole and not as individuals in that working group. Yeah, I think that's all I need to say here. Another interesting aspect is the actual culture in the IETF, and maybe that's also different from other organizations. You already noticed, and I see also in how you're sitting here, that is quite an informal gathering. And also the dress code is quite informal, and there's no, as I said, no official government role or organizational role, so it's quite informal. People love T-shirts. First thing you get when you register, you get a new T-shirt, and people are very proud of the old T-shirts also that they've been attending like 10 years ago. The IETFs, they're still wearing them. People are quite knowledgeable and passionate, and you will sometimes feel that in the room or at the microphone. You're like, oh my God, these guys are fighting. That's not really fighting. They're just really trying to get the best solution out of it, and they're quite passionate about what they think is the best way forward. Yes, so technical excellence is highly valued. So you're always welcome to ask a question or make a comment, but make sure you know what you're talking about, so you have read the documents and you know the topic, and otherwise somebody might have a bit of a rude comment to you, but you shouldn't accept that either. You just don't feel hesitant. I don't feel shy to really come to the mic and say, this is my first IETF, I've read this document and I have a question about this, or I think I have a different opinion about it. And I think that will be very valuable. And you also notice that people know each other. There are a lot of cliques and groupings, and people like to see each other again and hang out. And so don't feel excluded there. People are usually very open and happy to introduce themselves. So go up to people and say, hey, I'm this person, I'm new here, can I learn from you, or can we hang out? Yeah, I said I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about the structure of the IETF, and you probably won't be even able to read this, and this is currently a bit in flux also. But what's important is there's the IETF. Which part is that? We've changed the coloring now, I'm a bit confused. The IETF is all the working groups, and then there's also the IRTF, the Internet Research Task Force, which is the research sister organization of the Internet Engineering Task Force. It has research groups. So you will see on the agenda sometimes it says IETF, or it says like an acronym and then RG, which means research group. It's not a working group, but it's a research group. So the IETF is more looking into researchy, more future-looking solutions to the Internet architecture. And then there's the Internet Architecture Board, the IAB, and then there's a new overarching kind of legal organization, the IETF LLC. And there are other parts to that, the IRC editor. There are a lot of acronyms that you will see during the week. Yeah, don't feel shy to ask about this. Yeah, he just says, I mean, you can read that later. It just has a few of the groupings that you will hear more during the week. The Internet Engineering Steering Group is actually the combination of all the area directors together. They make it's almost like a bit of a management layer. They kind of have a final say about the working group documents that move through the process. And there's also a plenary session on Wednesday afternoon, I believe, where the IESG will sit there and you can ask questions and there are some discussions. IRTF, I already mentioned. IAB, it's a separate grouping. They will also be there. Kind of have more the overarching oversight of the developments of the standards and the IETF as a whole, and yeah, the administrative organization, IETF LLC. Right, now it's your turn.
Okay.
Let's go. Right, go on.
Okay, so I'm here to talk about the IETF. Oh, first of all, were there any questions on the first part?
Oh, yeah.
No. Okay, so I'm shrinking. Okay, so the IETF meeting week. I'm here to talk about what this upcoming week will be like. The week is nominally Monday through Friday, and then we are adding more and more activities on the weekend before. So, for example, we have many of the tutorials and the opening reception are today. Yesterday was a hackathon, which I'll mention later on, and also, okay, closer to the mic. Yeah, it seems to be on. Yeah, I'm intimidated. Okay.
Is this one better? Oh, yeah, I think this one might be better.
Yeah, take that away. Oh, wow, much better. Okay, cool. I'll hold it. Okay, so the key point of this week are the working group meetings. As Miriam said, there's about 130 working groups. I think about 80 of them are meeting this week. There are also called Birds of a Feather session, and it comes from the English American phrase, birds of a feather flock together. The idea being that we informally will get together people who have a particular interest and see if there is enough interest and enough possibility of doing something that eventually a BOF may meet once or twice and then look to form a working group. IRTF sessions, the Internet Research Task Force, this covers areas including, say, a cryptography working group, which is focused, hardcore math, a human rights protocol, how does things like the DNS affect human rights around the world. There's a new group starting on quantum cryptography. This first meeting is a tutorial. Each of the areas that Miriam mentioned are meeting. So the security group will meet one day during the week. The routing group meets another area. And this is where they talk about things that are related overall. Often there's a guest speaker involved to come talk about, Cisco will come and present routing in the latest, architecture of the current router or something like that. There's the IETF-wide plenary. Plenary is a Latin word that means everybody, which I just looked up yesterday. It runs Wednesday evening. It covers a wide variety of things from the really mundane, like here's what our budget is, here's what the bylaws we approved are, to often again a guest speaker, to question and answer period. In the March meeting is when we change over from the previous boards of the IAB and the area directors to the new boards. So everybody comes up, gets thanked, and then they all stream off, and then the new folks come in. There's often a lot of overlap there. There's often a lot of drinking in the audience there. The hackathons and code sprints, those are conventionally the weekend before. The hackathon is where people will get together. There's a wiki page to sign up. It's sort of too late, obviously, for this IETF. And people will say, oh, I'm interested in doing quick interoperability. I'll bring my implementation, you bring yours, and we try to, bash them and make them work together. Often heard that the thing is, oh, I got a segfault. Hey, so did I. We interoperate. There's tutorials. Many of them are scheduled for the Sunday before. This one, there's a follow-up afterwards about using GitHub. There are, as Miriam said, there's other newcomers events during this week, and then leading into the opening reception, funded this time, I think, by the hotel, since we've come here 3 times before and are coming back in 2 years. And that's just, beer and appetizers. And the 1,000 people, most of the 1,300 people that are here will all congregate down in there. It's a chance to, meet friends, re-meet friends, if you haven't already seen them in the areas, and catch up, or other people here in the room that you there are lunch sessions. There's one on router architecture. Wednesday afternoon, this time, it was being reserved for unstructured activity, so some of the informal lunch activities have been blown away. Hot RFC, it's a hot request for comments. This is a short-term thing where you stand up and you talk about 10 minutes. A guy named Aaron Falk is coordinating that. If you have something that you want to talk about and present to the technical audience for literally 10 minutes, find him working. The hot RFCs often lead to drafts or documents being adopted by working groups. 2 meetings ago, we had 2 people come and then actually present at the ACME working group, which I co-chair. Social events, not this time, but typically there is a social event Wednesday night, go out to a local tourist kind of a place. Yeah, next. The agenda is only partial. There are many things that are not there. What's called hallway meetings. Literally, people will gather in the hallways outside of the meeting rooms, or in the bar, hotel bar. There's or either in the breakfast area or in the snack bar area here. There are many what's called bar boffs. Let's go out for beer and talk about how NTP needs to be fixed, the time protocol. Let's go out. Let's meet in the hallway. I heard someone talk at a DNS meeting, and I cornered them, and they said, oh, well, the next meeting is starting. Let's go out in the hallway and talk. That kind of thing happens all the time. Don't be shy. As Miriam said, people are passionate and respect technical knowledge. Those are kind of nice ways that saying they sometimes can be rude or brusque, right? Don't be put off by it. Just say, no, wait a minute, you're not explaining yourself, or no, have you really considered this point? And people will, everyone will engage with everybody. Marathon editing sessions, people working on a document will often go off to a room. Wednesday afternoon, as I said, is set aside for a lot of that stuff. There's an online app. Our chair and Miriam managed to crash the app yesterday by uploading, but they fixed it. Yeah, it works now. You can find it on the meeting page. You can find it on the agenda. It's available for Apple and Android, and it's really great. It's got all the sessions, and you star the ones you want to go to. The agenda changes up until the very last minute and then beyond. So follow that. Working group sessions. So they look a lot like this, and I'll talk about some of the etiquette later on. It's the biggest part. It is, for the most part, the Monday through Friday meet of those day meetings. It's a chance for people who are working on documents called internet drafts to come explain to the crowd what's happened since the last time, question and answer, and resolve open issues. And the resolutions are done, as Miriam said, by humming. Humming is cool. We could do a sample hum, which is how many people are here for a particular working group meeting, how many people are here for more than one working group meeting, and how many don't have enough information to decide. That was the way a question would be resolved. So, and then you say, okay, how many people are here for one working group meeting? Please hum now. How many people are here for more than one working group meeting? Please hum now. Okay, so, and how many don't know enough to decide yet? All right, so mostly equal, but I think, rough consensus clearly was more than one working group meeting. Okay, all of the sessions, all of this tutorial and all of the working group meetings are streamed online via our friends at NeedEcho over there. It's important when you speak or either you stand, on the square or in the box. If you're asking a question, you have to stand at the mic so that it can be heard remotely. Yeah, let's go to the next one. A BOF, as I mentioned, an informal session, a gathering of people who want to do something. It often precedes a working group, although sometimes there will be a need where the area directors will say, no, we really, there's obviously a lot of interest in doing this. So let's go right to a working group. Most of the time it's consumed by what the charter is. The charter says these are the specific things we want to work on. And these are rough milestones. The milestones are always what's called aspirational. Oh, we'll get the next version of Quick out in 6 months. We really meant a year and 6 months, but so it goes. Sometimes it can be a one-time meeting. Sometimes it can be, a BOF met to discuss, should we standardize the protocols for network drives? Things like Dropbox and Google Drive and so on. A lot of people showed up. It was very, very well attended, and the final decision was, nope, it's too early. Nobody's going to do it again. Next. IRTF. So this IRTF is part of the IAB, which is the overarching oversight. It also was the oversight in our committee for the IETF and IESG, alphabet soup. Previously, the IAB was the people who signed the contracts with the hotels and things like that. Right? If you're having 1,000 people come to a hotel, you need to have contracts and agreements and all of that kind of stuff. The RTHS often meet at working group meetings. They can also meet coincident with ACM meetings or other organizations. They are open to everyone. They sponsor a networking prize, and the prize is they find 2 papers in the networking area. Everyone is encouraged to submit papers or references to papers, and those 2 people get picked to come to the next IET meeting, expenses paid, and present their paper. So it's a really good way to encourage academia flow into the IETF. Area-wide sessions. So the leftmost picture there you can see is the open mic. The plenary is held in the grand ballroom. 800-900 people show up. A couple dozen will get to go to the mic and ask questions. Of the technical leadership, if you will, seated there up at the front of the dais. There may be a talk, as shown in the middle slide. Then this one, I think was an invited lunchtime talk from a Cisco fellow, but I'm not sure. And there's more. So the hackathons and code sprints, again, too late for this time. The hackathon this year had, again, a couple hundred attendees, one of the biggest ever. There's a coordination wiki page done beforehand. Cisco in the past has funded it, free lunch and snacks and so on. But you can see in the bottom middle one there, that's sort of what it looks like now if you went into the room. 15 tables of people sitting around and either working on their own implementation, talking to other people, or sharing code and repositories on GitHub, GitLab, whatever. Next. Networking and social events. So on the left was the social event from Singapore. We went to the National Aquarium, and there were, stack tables, hors d'oeuvre tables in front of this giant glass. They should have taken a picture of the octopus, but oh well. On the right-hand side is the IETF Sisters, SYSTERS. Anyone who presents as female is welcome to come. There's typically a lunch, I think, sponsored during the, is that right? Yeah, a lunch. And it's a large group. As I said, open to all who present as female. Next. General meeting etiquette. Okay, so the most important, the most useful thing is if you're planning on attending a working group session, be familiar with the documents. Otherwise, you'll be lost, because what happens at these meetings, as I said, is the presenters talk about what's changed since the last time. If this is the first time a document is being reviewed, then obviously what's changed is everything, so it's an overview of the document. But if you come to a working group session thinking you'll get a tutorial of what's going on, it's not going to work. You'll be lost, you'll be bored, and you won't get as much out of it. We're working really hard, the second bullet, to behave, respectfully and tolerantly. We have, we're all computer nerds, so we tend not to be the most socially pleasant people all the time. Us accepted. That's why we're here. But we have what's called an ombuds team, and there'll be a slide with the people there in the resources section. If you are being harassed or made to feel uncomfortable, by all means reach out and contact one of these people. Talk to people, enjoy yourself, remember to sleep. The meetings start, breakfast is typically, at 8. Someone will say, hey, let's meet together at breakfast and talk about things. Then the sessions start at 9. It goes through lunchtime. Some days run long until dinner time. Then, oh, hey, you doing anything? Let's go out to dinner and talk about this some more. And then we'll all meet at the hotel bar afterwards. In my younger days, I used to go from 7 to 11 p.m., whatever that is, 7 to 2300. And I'd plop back on the phone and call back to the States. And my wife would go, you're tired and drunk again, aren't you? No. It's fun. It's also a lot of work just being technically aware and on all the time. Session etiquette. This is how to behave at almost any session, but in particular the working groups. Speak directly into the microphone. People will say, I can't hear you, Often in some places you'll say, eat the mic, because you had to talk that close. Say your name every time you speak. There are people who have been coming and are known by everybody or speak really quickly. So he'll come up and go, hi, I'm Ecker. Yeah. And then, oh yeah, Eric K. Rescorla, got it. They tend to slur it. People often also say their employer. It doesn't count for anything other than just help you understand what biases they might bring. Hi, I'm Rich Sauls for Akamai Technologies, and I don't think, everything should be on a CDN. The blue sheets, we don't have them here or at the tutorials. They will be passed around. You sign it for 2 reasons. One, so that we can gauge attendance, so that when we plan the next IETF, the chair will go, oh, you asked for room for 100 people and you got 20, so this time you're going to get a room for 30. It also, I don't think it's happened, but it also is a way of you saying, I know what's happening here, and by participating, I agree to abide by the note well. So that if you won't accidentally disclose some patent or get involved in patent discussions, that kind of stuff. Technical comments, questions, always welcome. The working group chairs who sit at the front, like Miriam and I are, will at one point say, okay, I'm going to cut the line because they're trying to follow an agenda. And that means if you haven't already come to the mic, then don't bother coming up. If you have a last minute question, come up after the session and talk. There's a Jabber channel. Every working group has an instant messaging XMPP protocol. It's almost always working group name. It is always working group name dot Jabber. Working group name is the group at jabber.ietf.org. That can be using the back channel. You can make snide comments about people who aren't here, but more importantly, it's a way for us to communicate to remote people, who's talking, what slides they're on. Next. Before Miriam comes back, are there any questions about how the meeting runs? Okay.
Thank you. Has anyone here attended the hackathon? Oh yeah, quite a number of people. Great. Right, this is the last part. Whoa, this mic really is better than the other one. You probably missed the whole first part of me talking into this other microphone. All right, let's just dive into this. This is the last part. I'm just going to introduce you to some key people. Here on the left, you see a picture of the IETF Secretariat, and they are really the people who make all this work. And they're the people who gave you the badges. There's a registration desk when you you pick up your badge and your meeting material. But also, if you have any questions or if you're looking for a room or if there's anything wrong, please feel free to go and find any of these people. You wear purple shirts now, no? I'm confused. They're blue. Okay, they wear blue shirts. Yeah, except for Alexa, who's incognito here. So yeah, please feel free to find any of these friendly ladies in blue shirts. They'll be able to help you. They've been around a long time. There's also, next to the registration desk, there will be some other desks with people. One is from the RFC editor. So that's the staff that really works on the internet drafts and the RFCs and brings them in the right format and ultimately publishes them as RFC in the RFC series. They have a desk usually that you can go and ask some questions, maybe about some draft that you have submitted or any of the processes, but how RFCs are published. I'm sure they'll be happy to help you there.
They also have candy.
IANA has candy, no? Does RFC have candy as well now? All right. Yeah, they all got candy these days. They're competing with each other for most candies on their tables. So there's the IANA, the Internet Assigned Numbers and Authority, names and numbers. Anyway, they hand out numbers, addresses, and protocol numbers. So IP addresses, domain names, and protocol numbers. In this event, in this forum, obviously, the protocol numbers are the main focus. And so they also have a desk there, and they have office hours there. You can find them and ask, questions on what they do and how these protocol numbers are assigned. And then there is an IETF executive director, Portia, and she's probably be around at that area as well if you're interested to find out more of that role. Yeah, the Ombuds team, Rich has already mentioned them. That's important. These three people are the Ombuds team. And if you experience anything unpleasant, any rudeness or any unpleasant behavior, please feel free to contact them. There is the link to their document, and there's also the contact information. But we put the pictures here so you can get familiar with them. There's Alison Mankin. She's also still, I think, the IRTF chair, right? Until this meeting. So she's chairing the IRTF. So you might see her later today in the tomorrow in the IRTF open session. Then there's Pete Resnick in the middle there. He's been around for a long time. He's been actually the author of that rough consensus RFC that I pointed out earlier, which is a great document. And then there's Melinda Shore on the right side from you, who's also been around for a long time. So they're all very experienced IETF participants, and we have a lot of, they've been through many years of IETF work. Yeah, move on. All the badges and the dots and the ribbons and who is who. I mean, that's very colorful here. So most of you will have a newcomers ribbon at the bottom there. And then the various groups that we mentioned earlier have different colored dots. The most common one is the blue dot, I believe, the working group chairs. So you can see if somebody has a blue dot, that's the working group chair. And you will also see them later on today at the newcomers meet and greet session. I tend to say that, I guess we don't have them. I tend to say that the most important one is the one with the smiley, but we don't have the smileys anymore. I don't know what happened to the smileys. We used to have smileys on our badges if you're happy to be approached and asked questions. But maybe we're now in the stages where we feel like everybody should be happy to be approached. And so, yeah, please feel free to come and ask any of us. So there's no smiley. Oh, actually, it's still up there. On the badge up there. Anyway, so I'm not going to go through all these colors. I mean, you can ask people but there are people with multiple color badges because they're involved in different groupings. But yeah, the Ombuds team, maybe it's a good one to spot. And also, I believe the technical team, where is it? I don't see it right now. I thought they had another color badge, but yeah, doesn't matter. You'll find them. Okay, move on. just some links and some more information at the end. There's a link to all the tutorials, all the slides, the recordings. It's all there. There's a meeting wiki about each and every IETF. You'll find a lot of information there. Also, people share some logistical information if they want to share a taxi to the airport, or interesting restaurants they find. You can find all that on the wiki, I believe. There is a newcomers mailing list. Are you all on that list? I believe when you register, you could choose to be on that list, and be subscribed to that list. So you have received all this information. I guess that's why you're also here. There is the list of the IETF sisters that Rich mentioned. So if you, the ladies of you are in the room interested to participate in that lunch, there is some information about it, but you can also come ask me or any of the other women here. We meet on Thursday lunchtime, but it's also on the agenda. Just feel free to come. And there are some other mailing lists about various groupings. I don't know if you're on the meeting participants mailing list. There can be quite a lot of traffic on that. There's usually a lot of very helpful people on there that send a lot of information about the specific meeting venue and what's around here and where to find a drugstore and a cleaner and all that. Yes, you can subscribe or also unsubscribe if it's too much. Yes, and then there is a lot that maybe that's one of the most important parts of the IETF materials, and that's the data tracker. That's for all the materials are stored. All the internet drafts, agendas, milestones, the scope of the working groups, it's all on the data tracker. And you often won't even notice if you go from the agenda, for instance, to some of the specific materials of the working groups, you'll end up in the data tracker. And that's a page that's been developed by the IETF tools team, which is mostly a voluntary team, and they've been working for many, many years on useful tools for the IETF participants. And there's also a page that lists all the available tools. Right. Well, you're all here, so you don't need remote participation information, but I find over the last year, actually, the remote participation facilities of the IETF have improved significantly, and it's thanks to a lot of the Meet Echo, the work the Meet Echo team has put in. So I don't know if any of you participated in the webinar last week. We also had them in the background helping. And maybe if next time you won't be able to come, I would encourage you to really try that out. It works quite well. We saw on an earlier slide also in one of the working groups, a lot of the working groups now, not a lot, but some working groups have remote presentations also, and I find they work actually quite well through that system. And you can also ask questions and participate in the meeting, even though you're not actually in the room. Obviously, there is a network you can use. It would be weird if you have to be relying on the hotel network. Now some hotels still think like, yeah, we have a network here, just use that, but that's not going to work. We have so many people here with so many different devices and have such a high demand. There's another tool of a team of volunteers, the NOC team, Network Operations Center team, the NOC. And they set up the network. They're already here for a whole week setting up the network and all the devices in the hotel. And there are a number of SSIDs you can use. There is one that we list here specifically. That's the IETF Legacy that we don't encourage you to use because that's not encrypted. There are others, that go over v6 and others that don't go over v6. And so there are a number of SSIDs you can choose from. There's also terminal room. I think it's still called terminal room, even though there's not a single terminal in there. But there's a printer in there. Oh yeah, that's right. So we used to say there are people in there that can help, but they're not. They're now at the registration desk. So you can find, if you have a technical problem, you will find them at the registration desk. But you can still use their room also to sit and work. And yeah. And then last but not least, Rich already mentioned that the Jabber room. So here's some instructions on how to use that. Every working group session, every session has a separate Jabber room, online chat room that you can use. And this is how how you use that. And of course, we're using an IETF protocol as underlying standard for that, obviously. All right, and above all, yes, enjoy. As we said earlier, make sure you take enough breaks. Don't fill up. It's very easy to fill up your entire day with like meetings and slots and sessions and working groups, and then by Wednesday you'll be like dead. And so try to get outside a little bit, enjoy Prague, try to make new friends, you know, and then feel free to also approach us if you see us, if you have any questions, or people at the registration desk. And there's a link here on this slide. I would like you to fill that in. It's a survey. This one here, we would like to get your feedback about the Newcomers tutorial, and also maybe later in the week, as I said earlier, if you come to the Thursday morning feedback session, it would be great to hear from you, maybe some suggestions or improvements you have for us as the education team. Right, is there anything I need to mention? No, there's the link to the webinar, the slides, this is our mailing list. Yeah, have fun. There's some time for questions if you have any. Anything I forgot to mention, things that you expected that we didn't say? I guess not. Well, then have a good lunch, I guess, or maybe the next tutorial, and then see you later in the Newcomers welcome reception.
I was going to say, skip this little area. Is that safe? Yeah, no, it's the first time ever. So normally the website says somebody's remote using their browser and say one o'clock. So the chairman presses that button.